The second transformation came in my life when my son was born about 2 years ago. I was at a 41% body fat. Over the years, you work a lot and you forget to take care of yourself. And when I held him in my hands, I had this surreal moment that I'll never be able to watch him grow up fully because I'll probably just die of a heart attack before that. So in 2 years, I went from 41% body fat to 7% body fat. I won every single bodybuilding competition I have done. And I'm going for nationals in December. And if I win, I become a national champion.
Your body is a manifestation of your mind. If your mind is young, the body stays young. I feel like the way you explained about being confident about who you are, that's the heart of a champion. That's how I see people who win. Because you cannot shrink because other people around you feels better.
It is the naivety that allows us to dream, right? Because I think the older we get, we become practical. And I am not some influencer who's been fit all his life. Whoever's listening to this, there's a very good chance I was fatter than you ever will be. So if I can do it, you can do it. And here's the things you need to do. Number one.
This is part of Dreamer series, where we delve deep into human psychology to make sense of people. Today's guest is Mark, a professional bodybuilder and a business coach. Feel free to listen to his story till the end. And as you do it, don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot to me. So maybe we should start from, who are you, Mark?
Yeah, I was born in India. I traveled to the US when I was 18 years old. I'm a trained engineer, so I have a degree in computer science and mathematics, a master's in IT. After graduation from college, I became a programmer. When you grow up in India, you only have two professions. You're either a doctor or an engineer. So I picked an engineer. But at some point in my life, even though I was making six figures, I wasn't satisfied because I wanted to start my own business. But building a business is more than just creating a product. You need sales skills. You need marketing skills. You need communication skills. And growing up as a nerd, I'm proud of being a nerd, you just don't develop those skills. You don't spend time learning the art of conversations, right? Because that's what sales and marketing really is. So at that point, I quit my six-figure job. I went into sales and marketing, and it was brutal. It was brutal because I didn't belong there. Going into a room where you know everybody, you see everybody, and you're just not like them. So it was brutal. But I was there for 5 years. I remember driving to work with a pencil in between my mouth because I saw a YouTube video that said, if you do that, it'll make you feel happy. That's how miserable I was. By the end of 5 years, I was top 1% in the country and I achieved my transformation. So I took that. I went to New York City. I became a professional consultant because now I knew everything, right? I could sell, I could market, and I could offer a product. I went from 6 figures to 7 figures. But again, I realized that there was something missing in my life because I had gone through such a transformation, having challenged certain labels that I'd put on myself. Nerds can't talk and nerds can't do this. I realized that there are other people like me who are smart, who are dedicated, who are hardworking, and they've spent their entire lives learning something and want to start their own business, but they just don't have the sales and marketing skills. So I quit my consultancy role as a professional consultant. I started my own business. So that was my first foray into this. Very happy with being a business coach. I'm still a business coach. I coach tech entrepreneurs. I coach solo entrepreneurs. I talk a lot of talk to a lot of tech people who have trouble moving up the ranks because of lack of communication skills, all of that. But the second transformation came in my life when my son was born about 2 years ago. I was at a 41% body fat. And, over the years, you work a lot and you forget to take care of yourself. And when I held him in my hands, I had this surreal moment that I'll never be able to watch him grow up fully because I'll probably just die of a heart attack before that, right? So I made him a promise and made myself a promise. He didn't understand the promise because he was just like 1 day old, right? That I'm going to change all of this. And in 2 years, I will win a bodybuilding competition. So that was actually July 27th of 2022, which was 2 years ago from yesterday. So in 2 years, I went from 41% body fat to 7% body fat. I won every single bodybuilding competition I have done. And I'm going for nationals in December. And if I win, I become a national champion. That, in essence, is who I am. And every year, I'm a different version of me. I like to push myself, and I like to see what I can do. And every single day, I'm finding out things about myself, and I'm trying to share it with everybody else because, in essence, I'm trying to help myself 10 years in the past,
Okay, perfect. It's a very well-versed, strong start for the podcast. Maybe we should start from an early memory in your life. So where do you think your life started?
I mean, there are so many memories that I have, but one of my favorite memories is when I was young, my dad would take me to school and we would walk to school. And sometimes my hands would be cold and
Mm,
he would hold my hand real tight and it was warm. And during it was like a 20-minute, 25-minute walk. And we would just talk about stuff, you know.
mm,
He'd sometimes quiz me on like, okay, 5 times 5 is, you know, or like
mm,
talk about, some geography or this or that. I did that for years and years and years.
mm,
And I think in essence, who I am today is because of such a practice.
mm.
The idea of waking up in the morning, introspection, thinking about stuff, getting your mind to work a little bit, getting a little bit of physical exercise, but most importantly, spending time with someone you deeply care about. I think that's my absolute favorite memory for
Memory to
me. Yeah.
start from. And where is this happening? And could you maybe like give me a bit more introduction to your family with your dad and, where were you at this point of time?
Yeah, so I grew up in Calcutta, India.
Mm,
I was there until I was 18 years old. So this was in Calcutta. My
mm,
dad is a Bengali Brahmin. My
mm,
mom is a Sikh Punjabi.
mm.
And the two different castes, the two different religions, them getting married in the 80s was like, interracial marriage in America in the 1920s. It was very, very like taboo.
February,
Um,
yeah. Mm,
but yeah, but that's where I was born. They fell in love. They ran away.
mm.
They figured, well, let's just
Oh.
get married and everybody will accept us. That didn't happen. My dad's side of the family kicked my dad out. My own mom's side of the family kicked my mom out, and they were in a one-bedroom apartment. And that's where I was born.
Mm, mm. And are you the only child? Do
I'm a
you
younger
have
brother.
siblings? You have a younger brother. Okay. And how old is he? What is the difference between you guys?
He's 6 years younger than me.
Okay. Mm. And let's go back to that memory where you walk with your dad to the school. How was your childhood back in time? Who was Mark back in time as a student?
You froze. You said go back in time, and then it
Yes.
just froze. I think
No,
it's uploading live.
which is fine. So I wanted to ask, like, who was Mark back in time as a student? You come from this kind of family. It's happening in Calcutta. You're going to school. Who were you as a student back in time?
As a kid, I was a fun-loving kid. I love to play. I like to make friends. In school, I was a hardworking student. I wouldn't say the bestest of the students.
Hmm. Hmm.
But looking back at it, I didn't even know like what to do. Like the older you grow, the more you learn how you need to learn, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I that's also a memory of mine because I used to work really hard. And this is we're talking about days without computers and libraries and whatnot.
Hmm.
You just buy 10 books and you just study them.
Hmm.
There's an art to learning,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I have known over the years, having completed my degrees, masters, and certifications, and all this stuff, learning and passing exams are not the same as learning itself. So I would go to tests knowing everything, but I wouldn't score the top score.
Hmm. Hmm.
Looking back at it, that's also a memory I draw from because in order to win the game, you need to know how to play the game, right? And
Exactly.
I just didn't know it back then.
Yeah, and I feel like the mind should be very fluid to learn. You need to be adapting to the circumstances and situations quite fast. And in many ways, I connect learning to that kind of nature of the mind. Instantly adapting, and whatever is required from you, you step up to that, and then you kind of, like absorb things around you. What was your worldview? As a kid, I always ask this to everyone that I interview. You were looking around, you could see all these adults, all the systems of education, people running on the streets. How did you think about what was your worldview back in time?
I mean, I didn't really think about much of that. The worldview that I did have was that I thought that grandma lives in a coffee house. And the reason for that was because, I didn't know it back then, but as a kid, we never saw grandparents because,
Mhm.
well, we were kicked out. Right? Dad's
Mm,
family kicked dad out, mom's family kicked mom out. But my mom kind of reconnected with her mother, and they
mm,
would like, her mom would hide from her husband and
mm.
meet my mom in a coffee shop. So it was like every Saturday
Oh,
we go to coffee shop, right? And that's where grandma lives. And older I grew, then it was like, okay, that's not where grandma lived, but my mom meets her there. Why? There were layers of understanding the world in terms of acceptance and
Mm,
what is taboo and what is not taboo, what is wrong, what is right, you know,
mm.
um, mixing of people or staying in your own small community. Those are the things that shaped my life because I saw it happen firsthand.
Exactly, and it affects you as a child, right? Like you're with your dad and mom, you don't have an extended family, and your friends might be having them. So you'd be thinking like, why is this happening? And
Exactly.
did you want to be someone or something back in time? Where did you have a goal, or I have to be this kind of person?
When you're young, I don't know if it's true for every Indian, but it's most true for most Indians. You derive your goals and dreams from your parents,
Yes,
right?
I
We're
agree.
not really taught to learn, think on your own. Like, what do you want to do? Like,
Hmm.
what does that even mean? Growing up in an
Mm-hmm.
Indian family. I think so. I had dreams and stuff, but looking back at it, they were just derivatives of what my parents wanted me to do. I think my first original dream that was mine was when I was 16 years old, and I said, I want to go to the U.S. I
Okay.
want to go to the U.S. I want to study in the U.S.
Hmm.
And that was the inception of my first thought process, where I wanted something for myself that was independent of what my parents wanted for me, because they didn't want me to leave. Right? Let's be clear about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, okay. So let's move on a little bit from that childhood, and you are becoming a bit more of an adult, maybe a teenager. How would you say, as a teenager, you were, connecting to people around you? Because yeah, at this point of time, most probably kids have or teenagers have this ability, like, how do I fit in into society and who's around me? How did you think about those concepts?
So one thing that was really good for me was that I went to the same school from lower kindergarten to 12th grade.
Okay.
So I was in the same school for 14 years.
Mm,
So when there is consistency in terms of a location you go to all the time, teachers you see all the time, kids who are growing up with you,
mm,
fitting in isn't as big a challenge as for someone who's always moving around, right?
mm, mm, mm.
But obviously, as teenagehood comes in, different groups start forming,
Mm,
right?
mm.
Even not all the kids are now playing together. Like these couple of
Yeah.
kids are getting together and doing their own thing. I think I found it hard. I mean, I distinctly remember like a specific memory where I was very good friends with somebody, and it was summertime and summer school was off, and then we came back and it was different. Like
Mm,
he had
mm.
found different friends, he was interested in different things, and I remember feeling like, what the heck? That's not what we do, you know?
Yeah.
So that was that was perhaps the
Mm.
very first memory I've had where I'm like, which group do I belong to? You
Mm.
know? Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I see that typically one of the problems that adults have, even in the future, is where do I belong? And that usually that is created as a child. People have very different ways to connect with people, and that's why I always ask people like, how did you feel belonged before? Um, let's move on a little bit more further. Imagine like you're finishing your high school. So what did you want to do next? Did you have like a place to be?
After when I was 16, I decided I want to come to the U.S.
Hmm.
Right? So, going through high school, I was just simply and singularly focused on getting to the U.S. And we're talking pre-internet days,
Hmm, hmm,
right?
hmm,
And we're talking like days where urban legends are
hmm,
are more valuable than facts.
hmm,
You just
hmm, hmm.
believe that you come to the U.S. and I don't know what
Everybody's
people
good.
believe, right? It's like, oh, you get off the flight and somebody puts you $1 million garland around you, right? There's just money in the air, So there's
Yes.
a lot of naivete. But looking
Hmm.
back at it, to accomplish anything amazing, you have to have some naivete, right? When I was
Exactly.
41% body fat,
Hmm.
being like the official mascot for Pillsbury Doughboy, nice and round, right? You have to have some type of naivety that says, in 2 years, I'm going to go from there to becoming a national champion,
Hmm,
right?
hmm, hmm,
Most people's goals are like, let me lose 5 pounds and see what happens. But it is the naivety that allows us to dream, right? Because I think the older we get, we become practical. And
hmm,
um, that just means that you're just a crushed person. So somehow I've always been able to encourage and keep that inner kid in me alive because it allows me to
hmm,
dream
hmm,
and it
hmm.
allows me to do crazy things. Like I'm talking to you right now. I just had a competition yesterday where I won first place in both categories. Next Saturday, I'm going to Ireland to shoot a television show. November, I'm shooting another television show. There's a documentary that's potentially being made about me. Been working with producers. These are crazy, amazing, fun, awesome things, which are just not possible when you don't know how to dream. So there wasn't a specific plan that I'm going to go to the US, I'm going to go to this college, I'm going to go to do this thing. There was an interim plan and a short-term plan, and the long-term we kind of figure it out as we go.
Yeah, as long as you have the courage to follow, I think the world, the universe conspires and make it happen. But I wanted to know, like, why did you want so specifically to go to US? Was it the movies? Was it like adults talking around you? I mean, this is the place to be.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the country to be in. We're talking about 90s. The US was flourishing, technology boom. Especially growing up in India, we're so fascinated with other countries, right? So, I have a uncle who actually went to England and studied there. And he spoke great things about England. But so the options were always England or USA. And, I just like US more, perhaps, maybe because of the movies. I don't know. But growing up in India in the 90s, US is where you wanted to be. If you want to do something with your life, if you think you have talent, if you think you can work hard, that was the place to go to, because it rewards people who have a strong work ethic and can dream and do all this stuff,
Yeah, and they have the kind of image of land of dreams. You dream big, this is where you go. But I would like to know, so imagine you reached US. What is your expectation and what happened in reality? You're a student for the first time leaving Calcutta. So how did you feel like?
Well, Calcutta is a metropolitan city. It's more popular than New York City, right? And like I said, this was back in the day when there was like almost no internet. There was no social media. There was nothing that you could look up a specific place and find out. Like today, if I want to see like what Birmingham, Alabama looks like, right? If I want to see what Dublin, Ireland looks like, I just go on YouTube, watch 4-minute videos, and I have a very good understanding of like what's happening. That wasn't there. So my concept of the United States was from the movies, which was basically shot in New York and LA. And turned out that where I was going to go to school was a really, really small town. It was like 10,000 people total. That was a huge culture shock. And then all the doubts and the uncertainties and all the confusion creeps in, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Am I going to be able to survive? Why are there no few people here? I mean, we could literally talk for 4 hours just on that phase of my life, because it was utter shock, panic, not knowing what to do next, thinking if I've made a bad decision, and figuring out, like, did I just make the best decision of my life, or did I just screw it all up?
Yeah, I could relate to a certain extent. I moved to Stockholm, Sweden, early 20s, very early in 20s. So I could understand where you're coming from. You're here, and there's all this kind of people who looks different than you, and you don't know where to go for grocery, for example, like maybe a first few weeks. Yeah, but see, like you were explaining about the naiveness of a child. That is what pushed you to take this kind of risk. I don't see a lot of adults capable of doing the same. They get restricted with their own mind. What did you choose to study at that time? And how was that school and people over there?
So initially, when I started, I was a psychology major, but I switched to computer science very, very soon after. Primarily because of the reason that people don't make money with a psychology degree. It's just that, right? You go get your bachelor's, you get your master's, you get your PhD, maybe you start making some decent amount of money, right? And I was poor. I was poor back then. I came from India to the US with nothing. One of the things you mentioned is that a lot of adults don't have the courage, and I've thought about this a lot, and I still apply this every single day in my life. The day you believe that you have something to lose is the day you stop making bold moves. But when you have nothing to lose. So you go all in. So back in the day when I came to the US with $83, I literally had nothing. So they had nothing to lose. So everything was an opportunity I've done everything from babysitting for money to cleaning people's toilets for money to shoving snow, and starting my own little web design company, to make like there is no work that I have not done. And it's only because I had nothing.
Hmm.
Today, when I am successful by most people's standards, right? I have a very successful company, I have a wife, I have a child, I have 4 dogs. I'm doing fun, amazing things, winning competitions, taking on things. It's very easy to fall into the trap of, well, I am somebody now.
Hmm.
I have something to lose now. So why risk it? You
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
But every single day, I still live my life in a way as if I have nothing. And if I lost everything, I say it with 100% confidence. If I lost everything that I have, that I've built on today, tomorrow be back on track.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'll make it all back. So I'm afraid of absolutely nothing, and that allows me to do crazy things like pick up bodybuilding at a 41% body fat at an age when you're basically a dad and an uncle. You know what I mean? Like pushing 40. This is not an old man's game.
And see, like coming from India, I feel like your body is a manifestation of your mind. If your mind is young, the body stays young. It's only when you believe you are an uncle or a dad, you become the dad and the uncle. As long as you could imagine or you have that kind of confidence that I am still young and I could take that risk, your body adapts. That's the fun part about the body and the mind. It is so connected that you could alter each other. Um, so you went to study and you were doing all this kind of different things to survive. And I'm hoping like you finished on time. What happened after that? What was your first job like? What was your thinking? What was your motivation? What was that you wanted to do?
So you go to college, study computer science and mathematics. Again, the perception of the world is incorrect. We think we're going to graduate and jobs are just going to fall on our laps, right? Because nobody told you how to get a job. Nobody taught you the game of getting a good job. So when I graduated, there was already a law in place in the United States that you had to be gainfully employed within 60 days of graduation, or else your visa was revoked.
Okay.
Right. So nobody really talked to us about these things. We didn't understand like what these were. We were so busy studying. Maybe we knew about it intellectually, but we didn't believe that it would be hard for us to get a job in 60 days. But anybody who's in a situation to get a job, right? You know how long it takes, right? And
Yes.
especially as a fresher, somebody who's just graduated, you have no experience. So that was another painful process. Like fear and stress and anxiety that okay, well, I have overcome the first hurdle, which was to survive in the U.S., graduate with a good GPA, somehow figure out how to make money, pay tuition, and survive. Good. Now I have this piece of paper that's a degree, and I can get a job. What do I do now? So the stress and anxiety cycle starts again. Obviously, eventually, I found a job. I moved there. My wife, I met her in college. She soon moved with me. We worked, we got married, all of that. But there are so many details that are just left out that that's why people get stuck.
Exactly, and it's for me at least how I believe there's a lot of luck playing as well. 60 days is a very short time, and I remember my times as well, finishing my university, and then there is this very short window of time where you have to get that job, and exactly like what you were saying, I was quite surprised, like why. I mean, I knew kind of this is a different country and you need to have certain kind of legal validity for you to stay here, but those kind of boundaries of adults become very clear to the young person that oh yeah, you cannot stay here, you belong somewhere else unless you produce some kind of value that we kind of decide. So it's a very harsh awakening for young people during that time. But then you got your first job. What was that, and did you like it, and how did you do in that job?
I liked it in the fact that it paid the bills because at the time it was hard. I was a programmer for a very, very small company. Um, Initially, I was really happy because I got the job and I got to stay. I didn't have to go back to India, because I was gainfully employed. The money was good, but the work was just not satisfying.
Hmm.
So I worked there for a decent bit, and then, like I said, I have just developed myself into a person who's not afraid to take risks,
Mm,
right? And I know, I know certain things about myself that
mm,
I'm just brutally honest about. Whatever I'm good at, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you I'm the best at it.
mhm,
That's not arrogance. It's just knowing me, knowing myself. Whatever I suck at, if you ask me, I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to say, Pranay, like, this is not going to work out. Like, I am not good at this.
mm,
I'm just not. You can ask me a question like, are you a hardworking person? I'm going to say, no, I'm very lazy. I
mm,
know I'm very lazy. That's why I set up things in my life to overcome the laziness. And
mm.
therefore, I'm successful. Right.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
when I got the job, and I've done this for every single job that I've held, then there is a point when I know that I can't move any further. My soul is not satiated.
mm,
I just quit the job.
mm,
I quit the
mm,
job without any plan. Why?
okay. Mm,
Because if I kept the job, I would be on cruise control.
mm,
I
mhm,
talked about creating that stress, and going all in, having
mm.
nothing to lose, right? Most jobs are golden handcuffs for people, right?
Yes.
It's a too good to leave, too bad
Mm,
to stay kind of situation. So for
mm.
me, I just break the tie. So I quit the job. I sat at home. I thought about what I want to do and moved to the next step.
Good. I feel like the way you explained about being confident about who you are, that's the heart of a champion. That's how I see people who win. Because you cannot like shrink because other people around you feels better. It's not how it works. At least from my point of view, it's not how it works. You need to be confident in what you do, and you need to, and because that confidence comes from a place of you putting a lot of effort and work and you knowing your limits. So, and it's only those kind of people who go into a stage for a competition or go into a ground and lead, because you need it. You need that kind of self awareness to go forward and do things. Um, and also about your job, I feel like it is golden handcuff for most people. I feel like the reason why their bodies decay, like like losing touch of your weight, for example, or like like overall being a bit more depressed or despair, that those things actually is connected to the job. How happy are you right now in life? It is directly connected to all those kind of things. Um, so you quit the job, taking the risk, and then you move to the next phase of your life. And what was that?
That was when I was entered sales and marketing.
Okay. Mm.
Because I was working in tech, I was making decent money, and I had been there for a couple of years, and I could see the next steps,
Mm.
right? And I was young. I knew that I already have the technical knowledge. I already have a bachelor's degree in math and computer science and all that stuff. I already know all these things. But if I wanted to move to the next step in life, this is when you have to hit the iron,
Mm.
right? Because I saw opportunities I'm being passed up on
Mm. Mm. Mm.
because I was just a shy kid behind a computer,
Mm.
So again, it's honesty. It's
Mm.
honesty. How many people are there? I have friends and family members. You ask them, like, what are you doing? Oh, I hate my job. Why do you hate a job? I can't get promoted. Why can't you get promoted? Conspiracy? It's not a conspiracy, right? Sure, there is
Yeah.
biases that happen.
Mm.
That nobody's going to say that. But at the end of the day, I have two choices. I can look in the mirror and I can be honest with myself and say, I did not get that job because that job requires a lot of people skills and I don't have any. So I need to
Mm.
go and become a different version of myself, or else this is going to
Mm.
be the rest of my life. Or I can just throw a pity party for myself, saying, well, everything is unfair. I
Mm.
just passed on because I'm a man of color. I got passed off because of this boss likes this. No, those are not true. That's just not true. So I knew I was young at the time, and this, if I wanted to make a bold switch like that, this would be the time to do it. So I did.
Hmm. It connects a lot to where you are right now. You always had that mind to out deliver, outdo, a lot of out competition, not getting stuck at problems. More of like, I see there is a disadvantage to a certain level, but there is no point feeling bad about it. Let's do something about it on the side and try to make your own route. And how were you in sales? So, what kind of products were you selling, involved at, and how did you find it? That whole idea of sales.
I mean, I sold many products. I think the longest stint that I had in sales was selling stuff over the phone,
Hmm.
information related products. And I mean, I was completely a fish out of water. Like, even professional salespeople don't like to get on the phone and make sales calls. There are
Hmm.
sales trainers whose entire training programs are like, pick up the phone and call, because
Hmm.
you're literally calling a stranger and
Hmm.
offering them a service that you may not like it. So I
Hmm.
used to make 300 dials a day,
Well,
and I would be lucky if I had two people in a day to talk to. The remainder 298 of them just cussed you out and hung up,
hmm.
right? And that is that is not. That's why sales has such a high turnover rate, because you can't every single day of your life be yelled at, be cussed at. You know,
Hmm.
at work you're not hitting numbers, you're not hitting benchmarks. There's a constant pressure of sales. This breaks people,
Yes.
right? It completely demolishes them. So I would love to tell you that it was so easy for me because I'm so mentally strong and I'm this and this. It's not. I was miserable. I was
Hmm.
beyond miserable. But I just knew, just like when I came to the US, quitting is not an option,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You suffer, and if you can continue to suffer, but also be smart and learn, you're gonna get better, right?
Eventually,
Like,
yes.
how you do anything is how you do everything. When I was at a
Hmm.
41% body fat and I couldn't climb the stairs, do you
Hmm.
think I looked forward to going to the gym? Absolutely not. It was miserable. I suffered just like I suffered when I was in sales,
Hmm.
just like I had suffered when I first came to the US. All these major milestones, and I'm skipping all the mini stories between them, but my whole life is like that. So yeah, I was practically miserable, and I was the only colored person on the floor.
Hmm.
And it's different. It's different when a person with an accent calls up on a phone call and say, "Do you want to buy this thing?" Start selling something. People think like their radar goes off, right? It's like, oh, he's going to sell me some
Okay.
antivirus that you know, that I don't need. It was very very hard,
Hmm.
but it's about finding data points,
Hmm.
connecting the dots, and then understanding. Like, I always say, like, as a kid, because you asked about being a kid, right? Those coloring books that comes that have numbers on them,
Hmm.
right? And you have to draw lines from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Life is like that. When you just open the book, it's just a bunch of numbers. What the heck is this? It doesn't make
Hmm.
sense. But the moment you start connecting the lines, 1 to 3 to 5, it's starting to look like a bird.
Hmm.
And even though you didn't finish the drawing, at some point it's a bird. At
Yes.
some point it's an elephant. So this is what it's just connecting the data points.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if we can stick with something long enough and we are smart and strategic about it and doing the work that is needed, you don't have to wait until the full drawing is complete to be like, oh, this is a bird. You can see where you're going. You can predict the future
Hmm.
based on the connection of the data points. So that's
Hmm.
what I did. And I got better and I better and I better. And at one point, by the time I did, I was for 3 quarters in a row top 1% in the company
Hmm.
nationally.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Nationally. Because my selling style was different. I had developed everything on my own.
Hmm.
Like, I did not follow a script. Even now, when I teach entrepreneurs, I teach them to sell without a script. To my knowledge, I'm the only one in this industry, in entire world, who teaches how to sell authentically,
Hmm.
being you yourself without using a script. Because the biggest problem people have with sales is that you have to become somebody else,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And we don't like that. And I didn't like that. That's why I was miserable. But at some point, I figured out my own way to do things, and
Hmm.
so I did.
And you also like the way when I listen to you, I also feel like the importance of independent thinking.
Oh,
Like you're failing all the time, and you're not again not trapped. I mean, to certain extent, you'd be trapped by the failing, like everyone else, but also consistently thinking, where did I go wrong? What is the word that triggered on the other side? And then you change it over the time, and you are doing 300 calls. Like that's a lot of calls for someone who's not in the sales. So you have a lot more hands-on trials. You could immediately trial ideas, try different ideas, try different styles, see what clicks with this kind of group of people. So I feel like sales is an exciting job, but only for the ones who enjoy failing as well.
You
Um,
have to enjoy feeling like you have to love to fail.
but what happened after that? So, and by the way, before we go to the next section, how was your physical? How did you feel physically
Th-
through this
that was
time?
the beginning of the downfall.
Okay.
Sales was the beginning of the downfall because it is. I mean, I literally cannot explain to you in words how stressful it was. And it was just me. It was everybody. You're under constant threat of losing your job, right? There's if you look at yourself in the mirror every single day and you say, "Oh my God, I am so ugly," you're gonna feel ugly, right? And basically, you go to this job and every day, customers are yelling at you, your boss is yelling at you, your directors are yelling at you. Every day you go, and today this friend got fired and that friend got laid off because they're not hitting numbers. Incredible amounts of stress. So when you are stressed and you're sitting at a desk dialing 300 numbers, even without realizing it, you start indulging in foods that you shouldn't be, in quantities that you can't, because you need the dopamine kick. You need that. So you start eating more and more and more. Well, after work, you self-medicate with alcohol because you just, had a horrible day. So then that then creates more food. So that was the beginning of my downfall. I mean, that's where I blew up, you know.
It's quite,
Um, just dealing with stress. Stress eating is a real thing.
yeah, it's quite hard. When I listen to you, it's such a hard life. Even though people, I don't know how much people will connect it to. Like it's just young people in a room trying to make selling and getting yelled at, getting stressed, not knowing what to do, and then ends up having all these toxic traits. Um, and what led you to move from sales, and where did you go to after that?
I came to the US when I was 18. 18 is very young, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to tell you I came to the US at 18 because I was a man. I wasn't. I would like to tell you that I graduated and then became a man. I didn't. I would like to tell you after that I got married and became a man. I didn't. I became a man at that job. I became a man at that sales job. It was even though I had conquered so many mountains before, even though I'd done so many hard things before. When I was at college, there was a time I was homeless because I didn't have money. I would sleep in libraries and bathrooms, and for an entire day, I would eat like a McChicken from McDonald's. It was 99 cents, and it was 7% tax. It was $1.06, cents. I would go to every social event in college because they would have free pizza. Like I've done things that you wouldn't believe it. But despite all of that, I became a man at that job because it was there that I realized what I truly can do. My ability to suffer and to take the pain, but still continue to move forward. That's where I discovered who I was. And to date, as miserable as I was, and I still talk to some of my friends from there. We have all moved on and doing other things. And when we get together, we talk on the phone. We laugh about it. We joke about it. We're like, you remember when this happened and that happened, or specific incidences? And we will always say at least once on the call that it was literally the best thing that could have happened to us. But it was the most painful experience. Looking back at it, what I learned about life, what I learned about myself, what I learned about people, what I learned about suffering, what I learned about what it takes to become a champion, you know, um, I would do it all over again 10 times worse if I had to, because the lessons were so valuable. I quit that job because at that point I had mastered what I needed to master. Right? It's so important to have a goal and a vision, but not get swept away with the tides of life. You need to know I joined this because of this, and now it's time for me to leave because I've achieved this. Right? And not get sunken by relationships and this and that, because your brain, the brain will always tell you, but yeah, you're so good at it now, you're making so much money now, top 1%. Do you really want to quit this and go into another thing? Like, look how wonderful life is. No, I had achieved what I wanted to achieve, and my next goal was to become a professional consultant. So I did. I did the exact same thing. I went to work. I sat there and I thought, there's nothing for me to do here anymore. Right? I have mastered what I came here to master. I used to remember walking to the building with stress and anxiety of how my day is going to happen. And then it used to push me. And now I was just waltzing into work because I knew I got this. And I just didn't like that feeling anymore. I enjoyed being at the top for a very long time because, you work so hard, you get there, but then you think, what's next? Right? So I just sat at my desk and I looked around and I said, I'm done. So I just sent a text to my wife. Thankfully, I have one of the most supportive wives on planet Earth. I don't know how she got stuck with a crazy man like me, but hey, some people luck out and some people don't. So my good luck is that I have her. Her bad luck is she has me. you know, I texted. I said I'm done. And I went to my director's office and I said, all right, this is my last day. And he's like, what do you mean it's the last day? That's it. I'm done. Do you have another job? No. Do you have another offer? Tell me. We'll match it. No. No, but why? They couldn't understand. Like, how could I walk away from such a lucrative job after I've mastered it? I'm done. So I came home and I was like, well, I got to figure out what the next step is. But you don't think about, at least I can't think about next step closeted in a room. Like, I got to be out. So I just like signed up for Uber and I Ubered for 2 weeks and I talked to people. Like, what do you do? What do you not do? What do you like? And it allowed my brain to just expand. Because, when you're focused on something, it's like this. You don't see anything in peripheral vision. That's why you don't have creative ideas, because you're just focused on conquering that thing. Right? Well, that thing I already conquered. So now it was time for me to expand my peripheral vision to understand, what do I want? Where do I want to go? I started interviewing. I did 2 interviews, one with Walt Disney in Florida, one with NYU in New York. Both of them wanted me. NYU came to the table with the biggest offer and the quickest offer. And I said, okay, that's it. We're going to New York. So that was my journey as a professional consultant.
Okay. Wanted to like add on to what you explained. Like, most of the lessons people learn comes from hard life scenarios. That's the kind of tuition you have to pay. You can learn as much as you want in theory in the school, reading online or a book. But if you really want to know what life is, that comes from quite hard relationships, hard jobs, hard situations where life put you to. Because it's not like you are out there to get destroyed. You are there to bloom. That is why you are there. But sometimes it's hard for people to wrap their head around. So they don't learn. They get destroyed by the scenarios. As a consultant, how did you think it was a different kind of a job from your previous job? And what did you do exactly? And what was the progression over there?
Yeah. Just to add on to what you said, you're 100% correct. I think the main key is in understanding that we're not a victim. Like when hard things happen to us, the first reaction is like, why God, why me? Why is this happening to me? Right? We start feeling like a victim instead of realizing this hard thing is happening. I can't control it. What do I make the best out of it? But anyways, moving on. As a consultant, at that point in my life, I had figured out a few very important things. That things don't get done in life because of tactical skill sets alone. Things get done in life, projects get done in life because of relationships, because of one's ability to lead, one's ability to work with other people. So I was a very high level consultant and I was working on some very high level projects that were stuck for years. And I really enjoyed it because I could sit at a desk. I've done programming. I know how to code. I know how to collect requirements as a business analyst. I know how to lead a project as a project manager. Guess what? I can also do sales and marketing. I can build those relationships. I'm an excellent negotiator. And when you're working on a very, very high level project with so many stakeholders, right, who all have an ego like, you wouldn't believe, projects don't move on because there's nobody there to be able to bring all these people together. So I really enjoyed it because it was the first time in my life I was able to apply all of the skills that I'd acquired until that point.
And what happened? Okay, I have 2 questions. One is that I would really like to know physically how you are transforming, because I have this thing in my mind, someone with a 42% body fat turning into a champion on the stage. So for me, in my head, it's a big deal, right? So I imagine people who's listening also would be wondering, like, okay, what is his physical state at every stage? So how were you at this point of time in work? You're focused, you're getting things done. How were you feeling?
I mean, emotionally, I was feeling amazing, right? And we talked about a little bit ago how we physically feel feeds into our emotion, and how we sometimes emotionally feeds into physics, how we physically feel, right? So because I was emotionally feeling amazing, now it was time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get back in shape. Like, I got to do something. I got to get on a diet. But as is with everybody else, there is plethora of information out there, and 99% of it is garbage, right? So I truly started my fat loss journey back in 2017, but from 2017 to 2022, I just failed every single day. Because today I'm doing the keto diet, tomorrow I'm doing the low carb diet, day after that I'm doing the paleo diet. I did OMAD, 1 meal a day, and I read something that the CEO of Twitter is doing that. I said, well, if you can do it, I can do it too, right?
Let's give it a
I
try.
lost so I lost a bunch of weight, but it was just water weight and muscle mass, right? And I was like, I put it back on. So, and here's the thing, now in my business, obviously I'm a business coach, but I'm also opening up different sections of coaching and putting out a lot of free content just related to fat loss. And part of the reason I'm even doing this bodybuilding thing now is to be able to, because I've already proven to myself I can do it. I've already proven to my son, who's going to grow up and say, because someday he's going to grow up and I'm not going to be there, right? And he's going to face some challenges in life, and he's going to think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this. But then I want him to be able to see a picture of me and say, oh my God, my dad did this, so I can do this too. But also, out of those two extremely selfish motivations for me and my family, right? I'm putting this content out there for others to listen to it and hopefully inspire them as well. Because literally, I'm trying to help myself 10 years in the past. We can't build a time machine, but we can build content or create content that helps others who are exactly like me. And that's when I realized how important this information is, because, I am smart. I'm just being honest. I told about honest. I'm very smart. I'm very hardworking. No one can suffer like me. I've done things in my life at this point, which is just astounding. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. So here's a guy who's an engineer who has done all these things, and he can't figure out how to lose 10 pounds and keep it off. There you go. This is how difficult it is. So everybody that is suffering from weight problem today, it's so easy to look at them and tell them, oh, you're so lazy and you're this and you're that. It's complete garbage. They truly need help and they don't know what to do.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So I went, I went on this path and I just failed over and over again. So that's where I was physically. Physically, I was still extremely overweight. My drinking had gone up a little bit more, because when you're living in New York City and you're making all these business connections, you go out for a meal, you go out for a drink. Well, it's a cycle, right? Vicious.
Yeah, yeah, and the work it's a work hazard as well. You have to go and make people happy. So you've been working as a consultant, you're doing focused work, you've been thinking about health. What is happening next? What was the next phase in life? Where did you move to?
COVID happened. And we were living in Manhattan at the time in a small 2-bedroom apartment. And all of 2020, we were there, and life sucked. It was a constant. New York City was the epicenter of everything. Friends, family members, people we just met last week for dinner, gone. So there was a lot of stress regarding that, and there was also no life. The reason we moved to New York City was because we wanted to live a different life. And I love New York, and I loved living in New York all those years as well. But all of the charm was gone because you're just stuck in a house, right? Stuck in an apartment. So at the time, I'd already started my business. So I was working full-time as a consultant, but also doing the business on the side, because you have to kind of build it up a little bit before you go quit your really nice job, right? We went to dinner with some friends. I think on a Wednesday night, because there was nothing to do, and it was winter time, so we were all and it was outside dining, so we were all huddled under this lamp like this, shivering, and eating and trying to connect, because you're so isolated, right? And I had this moment, and I thought, what am I doing with my life? I am outside on the streets dining under a heat lamp with the only two people that I know are still in the city. What is this? So we came home Wednesday. I had a conversation with my wife, and we said, you know what? We're gonna go on a road trip. We're gonna just move everything into storage, and we're just gonna pack the dogs, get a minivan, and just go on a road trip. We'll just go from state to state. Like, I'm working remote, obviously. She's working remote, obviously. What does it matter if we're in New York City or we're in Timbuktu, right? So we'll go to a state. We will get an Airbnb. We'll explore it for a month, a couple of weeks, depending on how big the state is. And then we just do it. We go through all 50 or however we can go until COVID is over. And we can go back to our normal life in New York, and we just come back, right? So that night itself, I triggered an email to my landlord. I said, we're done. And the landlord said, you can't do that because you have a lease. I said, well, New York City has a moratorium on rent, so I can either stay here and not pay you rent, or I can leave willingly, like by the end of this week. It's your choice. It's just what it is. And they're like, well, let us know if you need any help packing. I'm like, no. So we got a minivan, we moved everything, and we hit the road. We went from New York to New Jersey to Maryland, Maryland to Virginia. We found out my wife is pregnant.
Okay.
Like, great. We just left our home. We're on the road.
On the road.
We have no place to go. What do we do? That's where we were after that.
And I feel like when you talk about this experience, it kind of connects back to you driving Uber. You know, you wanted to like get more information from outside to kind of get an idea about what should I do next. And what happened after this? So your wife is pregnant. You guys are on the road trip. How did it play out?
Yeah, so we we made it. We had to make a decision. Like, do we go back to New York or do we stay on the road? Like, what do we do? And we said, it's just the first trimester, and there's no harm just being on the road and kind of seeing how it plays out. So let's not be preemptive with assuming the worst things, and let's just go with the flow. So we ended up all our first trimester and second trimester we were on the road. We went from state to state. It looked like as if we were running from police or something, because every time we go to a doctor, the previous paperwork is from a different state and the previous is from a different state. So we went through 18 different states, and by the time it was third trimester almost, we were going through Texas. COVID was still happening. So I asked my wife, I'm like, you want to stay in Texas for a little bit? Just like something different? She was like, sure. So we just got an Airbnb and called the movers and said, all right, move your stuff to Texas. They said, we only service the tri-state area. We don't go to Texas. I said, okay. I hung up. I called another moving company. Go to that moving company and pick up the stuff. They said, okay, but where do we bring it? I said, I'll let you know. So went to see a house. First house we saw, I said, okay, we'll rent this house. Gave him the address, and that's how we came to Texas, and that's how our son was born in Texas.
Wow, it's quite a fascinating story. 18 states is no joke. You've been actually traveling quite a lot on the road with the pregnant woman on the side. So exciting memories later to talk to the child about. And what happened after that? So I am imagining like in a place where the child is born, and you're getting this thought about, wow, I am not physically fit, and I have my son, and I have responsibilities maybe a bit more clear. What was that thought that went through your mind, and how did you come to the conclusion, like, I have to do this?
Well, at some point in life, you just get mad enough that just becomes an extra source of fuel, right? That this whole time, even though we're on the road and my wife is pregnant and we're having a great time on the road and there's excitement for a new baby, a portion of my brain is still frustrated that being as smart as I am, being as hardworking as I am, being as disciplined as I am, I can't crack this weight loss thing. Right? So it's not like that part of me had just like gone away. Like, it's still there. So when my son was born, that's when I was able to use that frustration and the anger, but attach it to the feeling of love and be able to take it to the next level, right? That, like, I'm sure you have had this experience in your life, and many do too as well, that sometimes when you think you have nothing left in you, you can summon some type of strength from somewhere, right? That just gives you that additional boost. So the whole time I was trying really hard, but I think it was the feeling of love that gave me that extra boost that I truly needed.
Mm-hmm. And you needed to protect, it's a new person coming to the world. You need to set a good example as well. So very like different moral reasons coming into mind as well to an extent. I would like to kind of like, I know that by listening to you for 10 minutes, they might not get all the ideas of how to stay fit. But I would still like you to tell us what was the thinking, what was the habits, what led you to your first competition from there.
Yeah, so I mean, having conquered this problem, I used to have a teacher who used to tell me, like, if you truly know a subject really well, you should be able to write everything on that topic on one piece of paper. And if you need more than that, that means you don't know the subject well enough. You haven't mastered it. Because the idea behind saying something like that is 80 to 90% of success can be achieved by just following the simple steps. And those steps can be just put on a piece of paper. But there are two problems. Number one, we want to believe that things are harder than they really are. Starting a business is not hard. We want to believe that it is. Right? Getting a great job or switching to a different job is not hard. We want to believe that it is. So there are three things. If you understand these three things, you're good to go. And I am not some influencer who's been fit all his life. Whoever's listening to this, there's a very good chance I was fatter than you ever will be. So if I can do it, you can do it. And here's the things you need to do. Number one, you got to get started and you got to stay consistent. So when I got started, I said 3 days a week, I'm going to go to the gym. Okay. And I told you, I'm lazy. I know I will not want to go. I will make excuses. I'm too busy. I have too much work. I have this, I have that. I'll go tomorrow. I know that. I know that about myself. Because I know that I'm lazy and I accept it, I put guardrails in place so I don't waver. So I hired a trainer, one that'll kick my ass. Right? Yeah. It's just what I need. He's going to be there at that time and I have to show up. What am I going to do? Call him and say I'm not coming? Like, that's embarrassing. Right? So I put a strategic thing in place. Now, not everybody might need that, but this is what I needed. But the idea is that I created an environment or a framework that allowed me to consistently go to gym 3 days a week. Luckily, this trainer also had the right idea. When someone is getting started, it's not necessary for you to go super hard. That's how you fail. You have to slowly ramp up. So it's people would romanticize. Your audience can romanticize and say, "Oh, he went to the gym and he was working so hard and he's sweating and he's huffing and puffing. Oh, what a great movie!" No, you literally go to the gym and you, what do you call this? Move weight around. Like you're just like doing the absolute bare minimum, which is a little bit of an exercise, But what matters isn't the weight, the amount of weight you're moving. What matters is that you're moving it consistently. So step one, if you want to do this thing, you got to do something consistently for a very long amount of time. It not only will have the physical effect, but it will have an enormous psychological effect. That I committed to something and I'm doing it. Right? So that's a huge, number one. Number two, at the end of the day, forget about your friendly fitness influencer who's also a scammer. Like, I'll tell you what it is. It's calories in, calories out. It is calories in, calories out. Okay? It's a basic law of thermodynamics. Saying that our body, my own body, I can't lose weight because the laws of thermodynamics don't work for me. I mean, it's a statement that, we shouldn't be even spend time talking about on the podcast. So calories in, calories out, but then you have to understand how it works. The only way calories go into our body is through one mechanism, the mouth. Okay? And the body expends calories in 4 ways. Your basic metabolic rate, your NEAT, your EAT, and your TEF. And I'll explain what that is. Basic metabolic rate is the amount of calories your body is burning just being alive. You truly cannot control that. Right? It is what it is. Okay? Depending on how much lean tissue you have, how much fat you have, your age and weight, that number will vary. And as you go on your fitness journey, that number will vary on its own. But you're not like actively controlling that number.
Yes.
Okay? The second way your body expends calorie is called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Right when I told you that statement, I just did this. I nodded my head, right? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Everything that we're doing with our body, hands moving around, head, walking, going to the bathroom, tossing and turning, anytime your body is moving, it's expending calories. Number 3 is EAT, which is exercise activity thermogenesis. the amount of calories you burn when you exercise. Pretty simple.
Okay.
And the fourth thing is TEF, thermogenic effect of foods. Certain foods
Has to
causes
affect.
more calories to be burned to be digested.
Okay.
Okay? Now, 70% of the calories being used by the body is in the NEAT and basal metabolic rate combination.
Okay. Okay.
So your exercise you're doing is literally 20%. TEF is
Okay.
10%, exercise is 20%. Basal metabolic rate you can't control. NEAT is you can move around, right? But NEAT and basal metabolic rate is 70% of calories burned. So here you understand now why a lot of people say I go to the gym every day, but I'm not losing weight. Because you're going to the gym, you're working out really hard. Maybe you burn 200 calories, but now you're saying, well, I worked so hard, I'm so tired, I'm just going to sit on the chair. So your EAT went up, but your NEAT went down.
Understood.
You are the same. You leveled out. Some people will say, I go to the gym every day, but I'm gaining weight. Well, because you went to the gym, you burned 200 calories. Your NEAT went down because you're tired, but because you went to the gym, you are rewarded. You can reward yourself with an ice cream. So you increase the calories.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Understanding this science, now you can come up with a plan. Okay. And then number 3 is caloric deficit. Right? It's measurement of calories. So if I need 2,000 calories to survive, if I am in a 500 calorie deficit per day, that's a 3,500 calorie deficit in a week. 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. So if you can consistently stay 500 calorie deficit a day, 1 pound of fat a week. That's it. Now, obviously, you're doing some strength training, so holding on to muscle mass. But I just told you every single thing that everybody needs to know to do
Yes.
this.
I think you explain it super well. Like I feel like the way systematically breaking down things, it's like calorie intake and how much you burn and how you burn it, being conscious about that. Like I feel like if you move a lot more, that means you have a higher chance to stay fit. That's why people try to say like you need to have this many steps a day. Like don't be sitting down, like say like 10,000 steps a day. And that itself burns a lot. So you get leaner anyway. But to build muscle, you might have to be a bit more conscious about what you eat and also like what kind of training you do. But I think those three simple knowledge spears was very good.
Exactly. That's just literally, you just do that, you're gonna lose weight like crazy. And then what happens is when you start getting success in one area, doing one thing, you start wondering, well, what else can I do? What else can I put on? Can I exercise a little bit more? Can I walk a little bit more? Can I do swimming? Can I do this, do that? But, because it's the concept of momentum, right? A car that is stuck in a snow doesn't want to move. You're spinning the wheels and it's just not moving. But someone comes and starts pushing the car and they're rocking the car back and forth, and all of a sudden it starts moving. When it starts moving, it gets easier. Right. The reason people get stuck in this fat loss period is because they're simply not able to get enough results to create a momentum. If we can get through the plateau, right, that little hill, then it's victory from there on out.
Understood. I have a very specific question for you. So imagine, and this is from my personal life, so I would like to get answers since I'm talking to you. You go to a certain kind of lean mass where you are fit, so you are doing quite well with fit, but you still have to cut out that final layer of fat, right? First question is more of like, is it healthy to cut it off, to just to look in a certain way? That's first thing. Second is, if someone wants to do it for whatever the reason is, how do they hit that final layers of fat?
So your abs come out as a man, your abs come out around 15% body fat.
Okay.
That's a good, healthy weight for men to be in. You look good, you have abs, and you can live a good, well-rounded life, right? When things start getting unhealthy in quotes in a state when you're sub 10% body fat for a very long period of time.
Okay.
Because your body needs fat, right? So when we're talking 8%, 7%, 6%, 5%, it's becoming very dangerous,
Okay,
right?
understood. Mm.
Um, and anybody that tells you that they can hold on to that level of leanness for a significant amount of time is doing one of two things. Either they're lying to you or they're on some heavy steroids.
Yeah, makes sense.
Exactly. So being sub 10% body fat for a very long time is not only unhealthy, it's unrealistic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do you getting down to 15% body fat is pretty easy, right?
Yes,
Your journey from 11 and below,
exactly. Yeah,
that's where it gets very hard because it's calories in, calories out, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So you literally have to cut out as many calories as possible and do intense amounts of cardio, right? While maintaining muscle mass, because when you lose weight, you lose. It's impossible to lose fat and not lose also muscle. Just like it's impossible to gain muscle and not gain fat. That's why when you see bodybuilders are bulking, they look fat. Because you can't just selectively put on muscle. You fat will come with it. You also cannot selectively just lose fat. Muscle will come with it. So then you get into a different game of like, how do I preserve the most amount of muscles I can on my sub 10% body fat journey? So your
Yes.
body's not catabolic. Your body's not like going to your muscles to get, sources of energy. It's using your fat stores.
Understood. I think you're very practical. You're talking about things on a very understandable, very hands-on level. Um, so we're going into the final stages of the podcast. So you had this transformation from 42 to 7, and you are actively competing right now, right? What is your future according to you? What is your mindset right now compared to when you were a child? How did you transform overall?
I think the biggest mindset that I changed that I have now as compared to when I was a kid is in the fact that I truly believe I can do anything I want. Every kid, almost every child these days are told by their parents, oh, you can do whatever you want. But almost with every child and every family that I see, these parents' words coming out of the mouth don't match their actions, right? The same parents that tell them, you can do whatever they want, they say, oh, don't do that. Don't eat that. That's too safe. Get a government job. Nice pension, right? Don't do this. Don't do that. You want to study that? Why? You think you can study that? No. Go and study something else. You know how hard that is? They're liars. They are unknowingly lying. It's not that they are manipulative and purposefully lying. It's just how most people are. I love you, honey. I will do anything for you.
Except,
Okay, can you please take the trash out?
yes.
Why do I have to remind you 20 times, like, to take the trash out? You just said you'll do anything for me. You can't even take the trash out. Like, I'm supposed to believe that you're going to beat up 100 people? Is what I mean? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
We
yes.
say things because we think we mean them, but we don't follow it up with actions. So for me, I know I can do anything I want because there is no other feedback mechanism. I have built this mind in a way that I don't care what anybody else says. And I get a lot of enjoyment in being like a zoo animal that people gawk at to say, how the hell is he doing this? You know what I mean? Just like I was sitting, I have a recliner chair there. I call it my thinking chair. Sometimes, I just want to, when my mind to wander, like I'll go sit there. And I was sitting there, I was sending a message to a friend. And I was telling, you think it's hard to get on TV? Like I need to get some eyeballs on me because I'm trying to do this thing. And they're like, seriously? Like, come on. And literally 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, I got on 2 television shows. One I'm
Wow.
coming to Ireland for. It's an American show, and one is going to be in Oklahoma. There you go. Because I have gotten to a point, like, who doesn't like to be applauded? Who doesn't like to be said, wow, you're amazing? Everybody likes that, right? Who likes to be criticized? Nobody likes criticism. But you can't selectively choose which one you like and which you don't. If you are the type of person who really enjoys other people applauding you, you're also going to be affected by their criticism, right? So I have just built my mind in a way that, yeah, I feel momentary happiness that somebody told me I'm wonderful, but I don't derive my internal happiness from that. And therefore, when they tell me something can be done, I really don't care, right? I just don't. Most of the people in my life, they're not probably like yours and your listeners. It's not like we have haters in our life who are telling us don't do this. All these people love us, right? And they care for us. And they tell us don't do this, don't do that because they're worried about us. But like you are wearing sunglasses right now. Let's suppose they were prescription glasses. Okay? And let's suppose I am wearing my prescription glasses. Right? And at one point I said, you want to switch glasses? And you like switch glasses. Now neither you can see nor can I see. Because your prescription glasses are made for you. And my prescription glasses are made for me. In life, our experiences are our prescription glasses. What this person says can be done or cannot be done is simply by their experience. So when I was at 41% body fat and I said, you think I could become like a bodybuilding champion in 2 weeks? Everybody was like, dude, are you serious right now? You know how hard this is? You yourself said that you have been doing this for so many years and you've been failing. Why not just focus on like losing 5 pounds? Why are they saying that? Is it because they hate me? No. It's because their personal experience is that they too have been trying to lose 5 pounds and they can't.
And I also, like, just to add again, I also feel like people are losing that independent thinking. There is this yogic knowledge from back home, which says that if you don't control your habits, the habits control you. And people, when they get bored, they immediately take phone. It's not because they think about actively taking phone. It's just that the habit has been formed. So whenever you have that stimuli, you immediately go to the phone. It's exactly the same. When people see other people wanting to take risk, since they have a habit of not taking risk or they have never done things that's uncomfortable, maybe, they immediately judge and immediately talk about, don't go that way, it's going to fit. In my opinion, only independent thinking could and also good habits. Everyone have to take certain kind of risk at any point of time just to make it more fun. Otherwise it's going to be like a very too smooth, which leads to a bit more sadness and suffering. Why not make it a bit more exciting? We're coming to the end of the podcast. I wanted to ask you, this is also out of my curiosity. When you said 42% body fat, what was the weight that you lost? How many kgs did you lose over the time?
I was at 211 pounds.
Okay.
I basically lost 90 pounds of fat.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's...
And then I put on muscle. Yeah.
It's quite jump. But the last question for you. So now I know how your mind works in a certain way. What do you feel like professionally? What is your future? Where are you heading to?
For me, the reason I went into sales and marketing was because I wanted to prove something to myself. The reason I went from professional consultancy starting my business is because I wanted to offer whatever I have learned to other people so that they can help themselves, right? In this phase in which I am right now, I'm realizing that a good life is comprised of 3 things: health, wealth, and relationships. Health is mental health and physical health. Wealth is passion in whatever you're doing, which will bring wealth, right? Entrepreneurship, whatever you're passionate about. And then relationships is relationship with yourself, relationship with others. Part of the reason I started my own podcast called Peak Performance Perspectives, right? So I'm just going into a next step where now I'm bringing all these 3 things together. Because I work with clients all around the world. I work with solopreneurs, small businesses. On the other hand, I also work with high-level top CEOs. Right? I run a CEO mastermind. So I've created a community of people who feed from each other. Right? If you are hardworking and you're driven, you feel alone. It's just the reality of life. Because nobody is around you. And we all know we are an average of the people that are around us. Right? So you take a really hardworking, driven person who has dreams, and you surround them with just like normal average people, right? That they're going to come down. They're going to underperform. So I've created a community of people now who push each other. Like, it doesn't matter how driven you think you are. When you're in this group, you will discover superpowers, right? You will discuss, like, I didn't know I could fly. Nobody told me how to fly, because these other people are pushing each other. So now I am bringing all these three things together, because I'm realizing whether you are a CEO of a very high big company or whether you're a solopreneur, when we are singularly focused on just money, we lose sight of other things. We don't have people who love us. We don't love ourselves. We don't take care of our body. We need 1,200 pills for our mind, because all these things. So it's bringing all these three things together. And it's not that I am some guru that's saying that I have life figured out. That's absolutely not. I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm sharing my journey as I go through with it. And the more number of people who join me on this journey, the more success will they have, and the more success will I have. And that is just my legacy. That is what I want my legacy to be. I want somebody who's out there, who's been raised in a certain way and has some imposter syndromes and fears, and they think that they can do something, but they really don't know how to go about it. They are unable to take bold moves, mostly feel trapped, trapped like a bird in a cage, but the cage is open. Like, when you're a bird in a cage and the cage is closed, you kind of know, well, what am I going to do? Right? But not many are there. All of us, when we hit adult life and we have started to make money and we can sustain ourselves, you have a little bit money to be free and do whatever you want. You just don't know what to do. It's kind of like the cage is now open, and that creates more frustration.
I understand, yeah.
So just trying to figure that hard out.
Yeah, and also, like, basically motivating people to be the best of them, what they can be, and also, like, setting that frame where there is people around you who also has the same kind of ambition and focus. Cool. Before we end it, I would like all the viewers, check Mark out. I'm going to put his social URLs in the description. Find him, support him, see what he's up to. So yeah, that's the end of the podcast. I would like to talk to you for 5 minutes once it's done.
Yeah, absolutely.